This is the Explore With Us channel.
Women's health has often been misunderstood, mistreated, and even exploited throughout history. For centuries, the female body, particularly the uterus and vagina, was subjected to countless myths, harmful practices, and invasive medical procedures. In this video, we'll explore the shocking and sometimes disturbing history of women's health, shedding light on the struggles women faced and the resilience they showed in the face of such adversity. 1. The wandering womb. Ancient Greece. For centuries, women's health has been shrouded in mystery, misunderstood, and often exploited. One of the earliest misconceptions came from ancient Greece, where the concept of the wandering womb emerged. It was believed that the uterus moved freely inside a woman's body, causing various ailments. Doctors recommended bizarre treatments like strong-smelling substances to lure the womb back to its proper place. This idea persisted for centuries, shaping medical practices. 2. Witchcraft and persecution. The Middle Ages. Fast forward to the Middle Ages, where women were often accused of witchcraft if they exhibited symptoms like irregular periods or infertility. These natural conditions were misunderstood, leading to persecution, torture, and even execution. Women who couldn't bear children or showed any form of hysteria were seen as threats, further reinforcing the ignorance surrounding women's health. 3. The Victorian era and clitoridectomy. In the Victorian era, medical procedures became even more invasive. Women who were deemed hysterical were subjected to clitoridectomies, surgical removal of the clitoris, to cure them of so-called emotional instability. This horrifying practice reflects how little agency women had over their bodies, and how their reproductive organs were manipulated for reasons rooted in male-dominated beliefs. 4. Forced sterilization. 19th and 20th century. The 19th and early 20th centuries saw the forced sterilization of women, particularly those deemed unfit to reproduce. This included women with disabilities, those from marginalized communities, and women in poverty. These programs were often carried out without consent, stripping countless women of their reproductive rights, and were part of a larger eugenics movement that targeted vulnerable populations. 5. Menstrual myths and isolation. Even into the 20th century, menstrual myths persisted. Many cultures considered menstruation as unclean, leading to the isolation of women during their cycles. These practices affected their physical and mental health, reinforcing harmful taboos that still linger today. Menstruating women were often forced into seclusion, limiting their participation in everyday life, and perpetuating the stigma around a natural bodily function. 6. Medical experiments. J. Marion Sims and the birth of gynecology. Medical experiments on women also tell a grim story. J. Marion Sims, known as the father of modern gynecology, performed surgeries on enslaved women without anesthesia, believing they felt less pain. These unethical experiments laid the groundwork for advancements in gynecology, but at a horrifying human cost. Sims' disregard for the well-being and autonomy of women was a reflection of how women's bodies were often seen as tools for scientific advancement without consent. 7. The hysteria. Diagnosis. In the 19th century, women were often diagnosed with hysteria, a vague mental illness that encompassed everything from anxiety to sexual frustration. This diagnosis led to treatments that involved unnecessary surgeries, including the removal of ovaries and even the uterus, under the guise of medical care. It was another way in which women's mental and emotional health were misunderstood, and their bodies became the target of invasive medical procedures. 8. The role of women in childbirth. Victorian and early 20th century. In earlier centuries, childbirth was seen as a woman's natural duty. However, medical professionals often disregarded women's pain, and birth itself was a traumatic, dangerous event. Women in labor were often ignored, and midwives were replaced by male doctors, whose interventions sometimes led to further complications, rather than helping. It wasn't until the 20th century that women's experiences in childbirth began to be recognized with more care and respect. 9. The fight for birth control. Early 20th century. For much of history, birth control was either non-existent or criminalized. Women had little control over their reproductive health. In the early 20th century, pioneers like Margaret Sanger fought for women's right to access birth control. Despite facing significant opposition and legal hurdles, these advocates laid the groundwork for the reproductive rights movement we see today. 10. Modern women's health. ongoing struggles and advocacy today, women's health continues to be a focal point of global advocacy. Women have fought hard for access to healthcare, reproductive rights, and the recognition of their autonomy over their bodies. However, challenges remain, as women in many parts of the world still face restrictions on access to healthcare, education, and reproductive services. The struggle for equality and respect for women's health is far from over, but progress continues to be made. As we reflect on these dark chapters in history, it's crucial to acknowledge the strength and resilience of women who fought for their rights, their health, and their autonomy. The journey of women's health is far from complete, but it's vital that we continue to push for education, awareness, and the dismantling of harmful myths and practices. Women's health deserves respect, and as we move forward, we must ensure that future generations are given the dignity and care they deserve. Let's work toward a world where every woman has control over her body and access to the healthcare she needs.
We've reached the end of this adventure, but the journey continues. Like, subscribe, and let's keep exploring together.